The NBA is arguably more loaded with top-tier talent now than it has ever been before, and patience seems to run thin quicker than ever before as well. In the era of player empowerment, these guys want to do right by the organizations that brought them in and gave them a chance, but on the flip side, they also want to win, and sometimes the harsh truth is that their chances of winning are being thwarted where they currently are. In other cases, though, a top player may just need a change of scenery to re-spark themselves after their time with a team has run its course. This brings us to an article written by media outlet Bleacher Report where they proposed some hypothetical blockbuster deals tackling this exact topic, giving star players that need a change of scenery exactly that. As always, I'll be going through each one, analyzing whether or not the trade makes sense, why or why not each team involved would want to do it, and who benefits the most from it if it were to go down. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first proposal from the article is between the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs, and it's quite a doozy right off the bat, as the Mavericks received the #1 pick in the draft this year, aka Victor Wembanyama, in exchange for Luka Doncic. This would probably be the biggest trade the league has ever seen if it were to go down, but I just don't see any scenario where this trade comes even close to happening. Their logic for proposing it is that the Mavericks have done a pretty poor job demonstrating to Luka that they can build a successful contender around him based on the moves that they have made so far with him there, so they'd be better off stripping down the roster and trying again with a fresh young slate led by Wembanyama, who some are calling the greatest prospect in NBA history. Now, I can't deny the fact that the Mavericks have made a lot of mistakes along the way, such as allowing Jalen Brunson to walk in free agency for nothing in return, but even after the disaster of an ending to the season that went down this year, I think they are at least headed in the right direction. Pairing Luka Doncic with Kyrie Irving wasn't the issue. The issue was that the rest of the roster was so stripped down, especially defensively, that the offensive firepower provided by them didn't even matter. The Mavericks can re-sign Kyrie Irving this offseason, and then as long as they do what they can to bring in a defensive anchor into the mix, they have a pretty good base to get back into contention. Additionally, I'm not even sure that the Spurs would make this trade either on their side. Wembanyama has otherworldly upside, and that's the kind of potential that you don't pass up on, no matter who is presented as an alternative option. Either way, this trade would break the NBA as we know it, but I don't think either side is really that inclined to make it a reality. The next proposal from the article is between the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where the Knicks receive Karl Anthony Towns in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, and 4 first-round picks. Right off the bat, I'm noticing that this is a weird deal where the Timberwolves are the ones shipping out their franchise player, yet the Wolves are also the ones who come away as massive winners from this kind of a trade. That would actually be a refreshing change for that front office, because last summer they made a big-time trade that, in hindsight, probably set their future back significantly. This trade helps recoup some of the lost draft capital that they shipped out when they traded for Rudy Gobert, and it also brings in 2 role players that give them some much-needed depth in areas of need, as Quickley is budding into a terrific spark off of the bench in a 6-man role, and Grimes is the kind of 3-and-D player that bolsters any rotation. The issue with this is when you look at it from the Knicks' perspective, where you see very little motivation to pursue Towns this aggressively. The Knicks are a team that, under Coach Thibodeau, will always prioritize defense first, and acquiring Towns throws it all off pretty much. He and Julius Randle as a pairing in the front court seems like an even worse fit than he and Rudy Gobert were, and pairing him with Mitchell Robinson presents the same exact issues that the Timberwolves ran into when they paired him with Gobert. I agree that Towns is probably the Wolves' best trade asset, and would not be surprised at all to see him moved this summer so that they can focus on building around Anthony Edwards, but I don't think this is the deal that will be done in that regard at all. The next proposal from the article is between the Charlotte Hornets and the Phoenix Suns, and in it the Hornets receive DeAndre Ayton in exchange for Gordon Hayward, Mark Williams, and 2 first-round picks. The situation between DeAndre Ayton and the Suns soured a long time ago, and now we're well past the expiration date. This postseason, we saw Ayton getting benched at the end of important games for the second playoff run in a row now. His body language was absolutely abysmal, and after originally signing a deal with the Pacers in free agency last summer before being retained, he made it clear that he wanted to move on and get a fresh start elsewhere. This is also the first trade in the article that I think actually has some ground to stand on, and could be a realistic possibility. ESPN reporters are already reporting that the Suns are going to look for deals to make, including Ayton in them, and the return here would be tough to beat given the talent that Ayton provides. Mark Williams just had a promising rookie season providing defense and rebounding as a big man to fill the hole left behind by Ayton, and Gordon Hayward is a veteran wing scorer who would provide some much-needed help in that department off of the bench for the Suns after we just saw Kevin Durant and Devin Booker attempt to carry the scoring load single-handedly. For Charlotte, Ayton is an upgrade inside and still young enough to fit into their rebuild plans, and based on who they drafted number 2 overall this year, they could have a young trio of young players to set themselves up for a promising future after a pretty bleak season this year. And finally, the last proposal from the article that we'll be discussing today is between the Indiana Pacers and the Toronto Raptors, and in it the Pacers receive OG Anunoby in exchange for Buddy Hield and 3 first-round picks. Yes, OG Anunoby is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and him pairing that tenacity with 17 points per game while knocking down 39% of his threes makes him the kind of player that can fit into any team and make it better. However, that being true doesn't mean that this kind of price tag is justified for him. Anunoby on the Pacers would make them a legitimately viable playoff contender next year after they were looking like one for a lot of this season already, before falling off a bit at the end of the season. But the reality is that giving up 3 first-round picks for him is just way too much. OG Anunoby is on the last year of his contract, and based on everything I've seen, he doesn't plan on re-signing with the Raptors, so Toronto doesn't have the kind of leverage in trade talks that they may think they have. You could maybe justify trading 2 first-rounders for him, but even that is pushing the limits a bit when the Pacers are going to have the money to be able to sign him outright in the following offseason as a free agent anyway. Trading for him here just gives the Pacers a 1-year head start together, nothing more. Expiring contracts get traded for pennies on the dollar all the time, so the Raptors will either have to accept that reality or watch him leave for nothing if they choose to hold on to him. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these potential blockbuster trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.